Imagine you are floating in the absolute silence of deep space. You are drifting hundreds of thousands of miles away from the comforting blue glow of Earth. Around you, the cosmos is a breathtaking painting of infinite darkness, dusted with the cold, unblinking light of ancient stars. There is no wind. There is no sound. There is no friction. You feel entirely at peace. You feel perfectly, undeniably safe. But this feeling is the greatest illusion in the universe. Because right now, as you float in that ethereal quiet, you are standing completely unprotected in the middle of a cosmic crossfire. You are being bombarded by the most violent, destructive events in the history of reality. You cannot hear it. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it happening. But it is tearing you apart, atom by atom. This is the silent reality of cosmic radiation, and it is, perhaps, the most terrifying obstacle humanity has ever discovered. When we hear the word radiation, our minds often drift toward human-made disasters. We picture the glowing green rods of science fiction movies, the haunting, rusted remains of Chernobyl, or the terrifying flash of atomic weapons. We imagine something artificial, something we built, something we can control or at least run away from. But true cosmic radiation is nothing like that. It is not a glowing gas. It is not a toxic spill. Cosmic radiation is a storm of microscopic shrapnel. It is comprised of subatomic particles, mostly protons and heavy atomic nuclei, that have been violently stripped of their electrons and fired across the universe at 99.9% the speed of light. They are kinetic ghosts, invisible bullets possessing unimaginable amounts of energy. And they are everywhere. The empty void of space is not empty at all. It is a raging, invisible ocean of these phantom projectiles, crisscrossing the darkness in every conceivable direction. To truly understand the terror of these particles, you have to understand where they come from. They are not born in quiet, peaceful places. They are the dying screams of ancient stars. Imagine a star, many times more massive than our own sun, burning brightly in a distant galaxy millions of light years away. For millions of years, this star lives in a delicate, beautiful balance, pushing outward with the force of nuclear fusion, while gravity endlessly tries to crush it inward. But eventually, the nuclear fuel runs out. Gravity wins. In a fraction of a second, the iron core collapses, and the star detonates in a supernova. An explosion so unimaginably violent that it briefly outshines entire galaxies. In the chaotic aftermath of that explosion, shock waves ripple outward at significant fractions of the speed of light. Magnetic fields twist and snap, acting like the largest, most powerful particle accelerators in existence. Protons and heavier atomic nuclei are caught in these colossal magnetic whips, bouncing back and forth, gaining more and more kinetic energy until they are violently ejected into the freezing void of deep space. Now, trace the journey of just one of those microscopic particles. For 100 million years, it travels in absolute darkness. It flies through the dusty remains of primordial nebulas. It skirts the terrifying event horizons of supermassive black holes. It crosses the unimaginable, freezing emptiness between distant galaxies. It does not slow down. It does not stop. It carries with it the violent, explosive energy of its birth, waiting for millions of millennia to finally hit something. And then, after an eternity in the dark, it reaches our solar system. It pierces the magnetic boundary of our sun. It passes the frozen rings of Saturn, the red dust of Mars, and finally, it strikes the fragile glass visor of an astronaut's helmet. It does not stop at the glass. It easily penetrates the layers of the spacesuit. It phases straight through the skin, the muscle, and the bone. And this is where the grand, incomprehensible cosmic scale shrinks down into a deeply personal, terrifying biological reality. Inside your cells, there is a masterpiece of biological engineering, the DNA double helix. It is the instruction manual of your existence, a fragile, twisting ladder built from billions of perfectly arranged chemical base pairs. It holds the memories of billions of years of earthly evolution, carefully passing the delicate blueprints of life from one generation to the next. It is elegant, it is precise, and it is incredibly vulnerable. When a high-energy cosmic ray enters a human cell, it acts like a microscopic cannonball tearing through a delicate crystal chandelier. The particle possesses so much kinetic energy that it simply shatters the molecular bonds of the DNA. It rips directly through the delicate sugar-phosphate backbone, leaving jagged, broken strands in its invisible wake. Now, the human body is a miraculous, resilient machine. If the damage is small, like a single strand break here or there, specialized proteins will rush to the microscopic injury, reattach the broken pieces, and life will go on. Down here on Earth, we experience very low levels of background radiation, and our brilliant cellular machinery can easily keep up with the repairs. But in the freezing depths of deep space, the bombardment never stops. It is a relentless, continuous rain of microscopic artillery. The DNA is shattered in multiple places at once. Catastrophic double-strand breaks occur. The cellular repair mechanisms become overwhelmed, confused, and frantic. They start stitching the wrong pieces of DNA back together. They make critical mistakes. Complex biological instructions are corrupted. The fundamental code of you is lost. This is not an instantaneous, dramatic death. It is a slow, quiet unraveling of the human machine. At first, the astronaut feels absolutely nothing. But beneath the surface, the corrupted cells begin to malfunction. Some cells simply give up and die, triggering a bizarre, accelerated aging process. Tissues rapidly lose their elasticity. Vital organs begin to work less efficiently. Other cells, entirely unable to repair their damaged blueprints, become rogue. They begin to divide uncontrollably. The corrupted code replicates endlessly, spreading through the body in the form of aggressive, untreatable cancers. But the creeping horror of cosmic radiation does not stop at the physical body. It targets the very essence of who we are. It targets the mind. When these invisible cosmic rays strike the heavy, dense metal material of a spacecraft, they do not always stop. Sometimes, they shatter into secondary radiation, a chaotic spray of highly energetic subatomic particles that flood the interior of the ship. These particles pass straight through the skulls and into the brains of the astronauts. As they travel through the delicate neural networks of the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex, they physically damage the fragile synapses that allow human neurons to communicate. In controlled laboratory studies simulating deep space radiation, the results have been deeply psychologically unsettling. Neural branches actually shrink. The brain's ability to form new memories severely degrades. Cognitive function begins to quietly slip away. Imagine being on a highly anticipated 3-year journey to Mars. You are tens of millions of miles from everyone you have ever loved. The psychological isolation of the black void is already crushing your spirit. But quietly, invisibly, the very space around you is dismantling your brain. You begin to experience sudden, unexplained anxiety. You struggle to focus on complex orbital mechanics. You find it increasingly harder to recall the exact faces of your family back home. You lose your patience. You lose your edge. The very environment of deep space is slowly, methodically erasing the person you used to be. This is not some theoretical hazard dreamed up by science fiction writers. It is a documented, historical phenomenon. During the legendary Apollo missions, as astronauts traveled the relatively short distance to the moon, they reported something deeply strange. While lying in the pitch-black cabin trying to sleep, they would suddenly see bright, sudden flashes of brilliant light, like silent lightning storms happening inside their own closed eyelids. They weren't hallucinating. What they were experiencing was the eerie, terrifying phenomenon of Cherenkov radiation. High-energy cosmic particles were tearing entirely through the thick walls of the Apollo spacecraft, passing directly through the astronauts' skulls and colliding violently with the fluid inside their eyeballs. The sheer impact forced the particles to emit a microscopic sonic boom of light, which the optic nerve desperately registered as a blinding flash. Every single flash of light they saw was an invisible bullet passing directly through their brain. We dream of exploring the stars. We watch beautiful movies about grand starships warping across the galaxy, full of thriving, smiling crews embarking on glorious cosmic adventures. We desperately want to be a multiplanetary species. We want to reach out and touch the infinite. But the universe, it seems, has erected an invisible, insurmountable wall. We are prisoners of our own oasis. The only reason complex life exists on Earth, the only reason you are sitting here breathing, thinking, and existing at this very moment, is because deep beneath your feet, a massive ocean of liquid iron is swirling around a solid inner core. This churning, superheated metal generates the magnetosphere, a colossal, invisible magnetic bubble that completely surrounds our planet. This invisible shield absorbs and deflects the relentless cosmic storm. It is the absolute front line of a silent war that has been raging for 4.5 billion years. When you look up at the northern lights, at those beautiful shimmering ribbons of green and purple dancing peacefully in the night sky, you are not just looking at a pretty atmospheric anomaly.
You are watching high-energy particles from space colliding with our magnetic shield and bleeding off their deadly kinetic energy harmlessly into the upper atmosphere. The majestic auroras are literally the sparks flying off the heavy armor of our world. Without that invisible shield,
the solar wind and galactic cosmic rays would have stripped away our protective atmosphere billions of years ago. Our deep blue oceans would have boiled away into the vacuum of space. Earth would be a barren, irradiated, silent desert, exactly like Mars. We survive only because we live inside a heavily fortified magnetic castle. Even this shield is not entirely invincible. Every so often, our own sun unleashes a coronal mass ejection, a massive violent wave of charged particles that slams directly into our magnetosphere. In 1859, the famous Carrington event struck Earth. Auroras were seen as far south as the Caribbean. Telegraph wires suddenly caught fire. If a similar, massive solar storm struck us today, the immense influx of radiation could briefly overwhelm our magnetic shield, short-circuit global power grids, and send modern human civilization back to the Dark Ages in a matter of hours. We are constantly balancing on a razor's edge, entirely dependent on an invisible magnetic bubble we cannot control and barely understand. But the moment we try to leave this castle, the moment we push past the protective, invisible embrace of low Earth orbit, we are entirely exposed to the hostility of the cosmos. Human engineers can build bigger, faster rockets. We can invent far more efficient thrusters. We can design planetary habitats with incredibly thick walls of water and dense polyethylene to block some of the lower energy radiation. But we cannot stop it all. The most energetic galactic cosmic rays, the ones forged in the violent hearts of exploding supernovas, will easily punch through any shielding we can currently put on a spacecraft. To truly, entirely block them, a starship would need walls of solid lead or water several meters thick, making the ship so impossibly heavy it could never leave the ground. And so, we are faced with a terrifying, existential philosophical realization. Humanity might possess the incredible intelligence required to understand the universe, but we may entirely lack the biology to explore it. We are made of fragile, earth-bound materials. We are carefully calibrated for a one-gravity environment, heavily dependent on a magnetic shield, breathing a highly specific blend of nitrogen and oxygen. We are an incredibly specialized organism, deeply, permanently tethered to the specific geological conditions of this one solitary rock. What if the Great Filter, the terrifying hypothetical barrier that prevents civilizations from spreading across the galaxy, is not nuclear war? What if it is not runaway artificial intelligence or catastrophic climate collapse? What if the Great Filter is simply the radioactive space between the stars? What if the universe is fundamentally, physically incompatible with organic life? It is a deeply lonely, melancholic thought. To look up at the beautiful night sky, at the billions of shimmering, welcoming stars, and realize that the dark space between them is not an empty, peaceful ocean waiting to be sailed, but a violently radioactive desert that actively breaks down the very machinery of life. Think about the sheer, overwhelming scale of time involved in this process. Human history, the ancient pyramids, the grand empires, the Industrial Revolution, the creation of the Internet. All of it happened in the mere blink of a cosmic eye. Yet, some of the high-energy particles passing through your body today began their violent journey before the Earth was even formed. They have traversed the silent, freezing expanse of reality for billions of years, only to end their incomprehensible journey by colliding with a single, fragile cell in your body. You are the final, tragic resting place of a primordial cosmic journey. The universe does not hate us. It did not intentionally create cosmic radiation to keep humanity trapped on Earth. It is far more terrifying than that. The universe is simply indifferent. The exact same laws of physics that allow brilliant stars to ignite and beautiful spiral galaxies to form are the exact same laws that dictate that empty space must be eternally flooded with lethal, invisible energy. The universe operates on a massive, terrifying scale of supernovas, crushing black holes, and blinding gamma-ray bursts. In a cosmos of such violent, unimaginable power, the delicate, watery chemistry of a human cell is nothing but a microscopic statistical anomaly. We are soft, incredibly fragile biology trying desperately to survive in a universe governed by hard, unforgiving physics. But perhaps, hidden deep within this existential cosmic dread, there is also a strange, profound, and undeniable beauty. Because despite the raging cosmic storm, here we are. For billions of years, fragile life on Earth has stubbornly persisted. We survived the devastating meteor strikes. We survived the freezing ice ages. We evolved, we grew, we learned, and eventually, we developed the brilliant capacity to look up and actually understand the very cosmic forces that threaten to destroy us. The exact same chaotic, violent universe that forged the deadly cosmic rays also forged the iron flowing in our blood, the calcium holding up our bones, and the complex carbon weaving through our DNA. We are literally born of the stars, even if the stars themselves are completely hostile to our presence. And despite knowing the terrible dangers, despite fully understanding the insurmountable invisible wall of radiation that waits for us in the dark, humanity still builds rockets. Brave astronauts still willingly strap themselves into massive machines of fire and thrust themselves out into the freezing void. We know the tremendous risks. We know our biology is painfully fragile. Yet our endless curiosity somehow overrides our deepest fears. We are tiny. We are vulnerable, and we may be physically, permanently tethered to this single blue marble floating in the dark. But our minds can wander the entire infinite cosmos. We have successfully sent our robotic probes into the freezing interstellar dark. We have peered with massive telescopes to the very edge of the observable universe. We cannot easily walk among the distant stars. So we have brilliantly brought the stars to us through the sheer, unstoppable power of human ingenuity. The universe is vast, dangerous, and overwhelmingly indifferent. It is filled with terrifying, invisible forces that can dismantle our bodies before we even realize we are under attack. But the human spirit is deeply, wonderfully stubborn. We will keep looking up at the night sky. We will keep calculating, designing, and dreaming of new worlds. We will continuously try to solve the seemingly unsolvable puzzle of the cosmic dark. Because for a fragile, temporary species that was born in the dirt, the burning desire to reach out and touch the infinite is the most beautiful defiance of all. If you found yourself lost in the immense fragile beauty of our universe tonight, take a quiet moment to leave a like, share this journey with a fellow traveler, and subscribe to the channel. There are countless more mysteries waiting out there in the dark, and we will explore them all together.